When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and I'm just really enjoying 2024. I want to hear a shout out there if you are enjoying 2024. You know, we really can look at our lives in two different ways. We can look at our lives like, I am so happy that I get to create this life that I designed for me. That's why we created this podcast, because I want you to understand that you design everything the way it is today in your life, even though some people think that life's happening to them. I hope that this podcast has inspired you for all the years that we've been doing it. Today's episode number 149. We have Janice Rice here. We're going to be talking about my favorite subject, which is money. And before the show started, I said, Janice, don't you think money should be everyone's favorite thing? She said, yeah, it is the resource. Like, that's why we get up in the morning, right? Many of us get up in the morning to generate income. But I started, a routine for myself a couple of years ago, not knowing the book Miracle Morning at all. I had never read that book. And if you haven't read that book, go get the book. It's part of becoming a peak performer. So go get the book. And it talks about starting your morning off by getting up at a certain time every day, reading, moving your body, exercising, doing affirmations, journaling, knowing what your goals are. And I will tell you, any book I've ever read of peak performers or high performers, any workshop I've ever taught, those basic methods are part of it. And that's easy to do. And I was so excited because I was off my schedule a little bit last week. I was in Sedona. For those of you that didn't know, it snowed in Sedona a lot while I was there. So we kind of got snowed in, which was perfect because we were in this huge, massive mansion with fireplaces. So it was perfect, with a bunch of amazing, empowered women in journalism. And we were doing interviews on camera and learning more about how to shine in the media. And I think that is so important for each one of us. How are you shining in your life? What is it that you do that you shine in? And are you doing more of that? We get one life. We get one life. So why not take that life and make it the best you can possibly make? And I always say your outside reflects your inside. So start working on the inside first, and then everything on the outside will change. So talking about money today, I want to first thank our sponsor before we get to our guest, Janice Rice, the founder of Yame Consulting. I will get to her in a minute, but before I do, I want to thank Phoenix Drone Pros. And at Phoenix Drone Pros, we love what we do and are passionate about each and every drone photography and video shoot. We've been in business since 2017. Our talent and skills shows in the video production we deliver. We offer fast service for commercial real estate, movies, events, and construction site monitoring. We also provide drone virtual tours that are all the rage right now. And we work with many residential real estate properties. These virtual tours are great for team building and entertainment. Contact us today at phoenixdronepros.com to schedule your shoot online or to get more information. We're now franchising. Reach out for info on how you can purchase your own drone company and turn your hobby into cash today. We capture everything. See, we're talking about cash, Janice. It's all everywhere. So let me tell you a little bit about Janice before we get started. She's been in the accounting industry for over 20 years. She's worked directly for small business owners, corporations, and most recently for a consulting firm. And working for a CPA and bookkeeping firm exposed her to many industries at the same time. And she says, in her opinion, it's the absolute best way to gain experience as an accountant. She got hands-on application of accounting best practices, the segregation of duties, financial analysis, auditing, and accounting system backup. That just makes me want to fall asleep when we start talking about this stuff. I think Janice gets all jazzed about it, but for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to run the opposite direction. It's why we're talking about this today. Janice lives in Mesa with her husband and teenage son. She's a neighbor of mine here in my community. And when she's not focused on bookkeeping, she's doing a puzzle or walking outdoors. It's beautiful here. How could you not walk outdoors? And anything she can do while listening to music. Janice is a music lover. Hey, Janice, welcome to today's show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here because YAME, YAME, stands for Your Accounting Made Easy. Most people think accounting, if I'm not an accountant, it's the worst.
Yeah, finance in general, anything to do with numbers, people get cross-eyed.
I've always found that my personal budget was easy because the categories seemed very simple. Groceries were groceries, household items were household items, mortgage was mortgage, electricity was electricity, right? So I felt like I could always organize those very simply. But then when I move into the bookkeeping for a business, now we're talking that certain items are like cost of goods sold, right? The counting is different, I feel like in a business because you're generating income. And when you're doing a personal budget, it's way different. So you have to know what are like the top three things that people are hiring you for constantly because they're just freaked out or don't want to do it or they're frustrated with their business finances. What is that about?
It is usually the mess that has been made. So people will think that QuickBooks is easy. I get that a lot. Like QuickBooks Online is not as easy as people initially think. And so they get their software, they get Wave or Xero or QuickBooks, and they set everything up and they hook up their bank to, the accounting system and they start bringing everything in. And like you said, they start categorizing it. But you categorize it in like the way that you know how. So you're categorizing it based on kind of common sense a lot of times. And that's not, accounting isn't always common sense in the way that, well, actually, let me take that back. Taxes are not common sense. And so when you're doing your books in order to do your taxes, that is where the common sense kind of goes out the window. My best example is people will book things to the balance sheet, which I think of you're going through your books and you're going through all of the transactions that you've done and you're categorizing them. And there are things that are going to be always and forever income and deductions, and you want deductions when you're doing your taxes. But imagine there's this place over here that you can throw things that just kind of gets overlooked. And it's like the closet. It's the closet for your finances. And the IRS doesn't see it. And unless you have a good CPA or a good bookkeeper, you usually don't see it. And you could buy a computer or a big piece of equipment and think, it says equipment. Let me just book it to equipment, right? And that goes in the closet and you never see it again. It doesn't show up on your profit and loss. And people just don't realize that. So then they get about a year down the road and they made more money than they thought they did. They don't know where it went. Like, where's my money going is usually the biggest question that I get is I'm doing my own books and I don't know where my money is going. It says I'm making money, but my bank account isn't growing. I don't understand that. Can you help me understand that? And that's what I do best.
And then they're like, but I don't understand. Why is my balance sheet not balanced? And
Or
then
what's this
why
negative
do I
amount?
need to reconcile? What's reconciling? So I'm just being honest because I had to go through a learning curve too, with a lot of that because I worked with projecting performance, right? Business plans, performance, working with business owners and planning the business, launching the business, making sure they had the right capital, the funding, all of that. right? But then once they got up and running, I didn't really work with them past that point and all of their finances and books and I've always had professionals that I've hired to take care of that because but I do believe because a friend of mine had about a $500,000 stolen from him in a company called Tyler's Coffee. He got very successful very quick, handed things off to people so he didn't have to worry about it, and then they embezzled money and left with it. So we do need to be financially literate. And that's kind of just the basic steps. What would you say? Like financial literacy, what are kind of the basic things in our business if we're running a business? And I think this goes for our personal too, our personal budget. What are kind of the basic things we need to know, right? Income, what that income is.
Income,
Yeah.
expenses, I would say just generally understanding the pieces of financial statements.
Mm.
If you can watch a few videos or read a book on how to understand, basic financial accounting as a business owner, that can really take you far.
Hmm.
I also, just to touch on the fraud and the embezzlement, I am a strong believer in segregation of duties. And you can actually do that in your company even when you're tiny. And that's just by having two sets of eyes on things, whether that be a bookkeeper and a tax accountant, or a bookkeeper and a CPA,
Yeah.
or just two different people. Because when you add two different people, the only way people can steal from you at that point is collusion, and that's a lot harder to come by as
It's
people
a
get.
great tip.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a wonderful tip. So I get the question a lot. Entrepreneurs will start out and they want to try and keep it as lean as possible, and they don't want to dump money into resources. And I say all the time, one of the best investments you'll ever make is having someone that is financially literate, knows how to be a bookkeeper. Maybe they're an enrolled agent or a CPA. Talk to us about the difference between, I get this question a lot. I'm not the one that should answer it. That's why you're here today, to inform everybody, all of our listeners, the difference between an enrolled agent, a CPA, and a bookkeeper. Those are
That is
three.
that is a great question. I
Yeah.
get that question a lot. In fact, a lot of people think that an accountant and a CPA are the same thing, to the point where if you introduce yourself as an accountant, they will assume you are a CPA until you correct them. And as an accountant, for the longest time, that did give me imposter syndrome and and really get to me, because I'm like, no, I'm not a CPA, but I really do know what I'm doing. A CPA, we'll start there. That actually stands for a certified public accountant. And the reason why everybody wants a CPA because they are the cream of the crop, but they also are the most expensive. They are someone who had to go to school for accounting for 4 years. So you have to have a bachelor's degree in accounting to get your CPA. So even to
Okay.
qualify, you have to have proven that you have 2,000 hours of experience, and then you have to pass their tests. And it's like the bar exam. I always equate it to that. It's four different exams. You do business, you do tax, you do audit, and you do financial accounting. I passed two out of those four, and then COVID happened, and the rest was just like, I don't really need my CPA. Why do I not need my CPA? Well, certified public accountant. If you're not going to start and run your own tax firm, if you're not going to do public auditing, where you're actually working for an auditing firm, um, maybe forensic accounting, there's other places to go. But if you're not going to do some of those things, there's really no reason to have your CPA, because what happens as an accountant when you get your CPA is you have to raise your prices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you don't want to go into that tier. So that's where I found myself as an accountant. Well, an accountant is someone who went to school for accounting. There's so many different paths that you can go when you go to school for accounting. But I loved financial accounting and I loved business. I've had my own businesses. I've ran businesses, I've done accounting for businesses, and financial accounting is my favorite because that's the forecasting, that's the business side of things. That's knowing when you can hire. That's knowing, how much your overhead is, how much your cost of goods are. Is this a good business model? Are you going to be able to scale it? Is it a volume model? Is that the only way you're going to make money? Because it's a restaurant and you have an 8% margin, and the only way to make money is with volume. So I love all of that, those pieces of things. A bookkeeper is entry level. They don't actually have an accounting degree. And this is where I say that if you're going to have a bookkeeper, you absolutely positively have to have someone with an oversight over that bookkeeper, because that bookkeeper didn't go to school for accounting. They might have a bookkeeping certificate. They may have gone through the QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor and the bookkeeping modules that they have, and that's the extent of their experience. They may have done bookkeeping for a business for 10 years, and that's why they can call themselves a bookkeeper, because they've just had all this hands-on experience. But there is no degree involved, and there's the balance sheet piece of things that I always see is missed with people that didn't go to school for accounting theory, and that's what you learn in school. And so when you do hire a bookkeeper, they come at a lower cost. But if you're going to do that, then point out to your CPA or point out to your enrolled agent who is a tax accountant. Enrolled agent, you can actually be an enrolled agent and not have a degree. So you can go through the IRS's test and pass their test, but only know how to do taxes. And that's taking a financial profit and loss and plugging that into a software system. And you may understand what you're doing 100% when it comes to deductions and thresholds and all the stuff that I failed to memorize because tax accounting is not common sense. But if you don't have someone making sure that you categorized the equipment that you bought correctly, asking if you had mileage, and asking the questions that lead to a correct tax return, that enrolled agent isn't going to file taxes correctly. So we go full circle back around to, why would you want a CPA? Because my favorite one is probably a bookkeeper and a CPA, because then you have a bookkeeper that is doing your books and you have a CPA making sure that the bookkeeper did it correctly. Or you can go with a firm like what we do, where you have an accountant that heads the bookkeeping piece of things, and then I work with the CPA or the enrolled agent, but I'm the one making sure that things are categorized correctly.
Yeah. I love that. And that is, to me, one of the first steps as a business owner that you should make in resources, which is having someone take care of your financials, right? So a bookkeeper, as well as a virtual assistant. Someone or an assistant locally, if you can get one locally. They're all over the United States, they're all over the world. Where are you going to find that assistant virtually or in person that can work with you, 5, 10, 15 hours a week, that can help you with a lot of the things that you need to be focusing on, the things that you do best, while they kind of take care of the rest of the background things. I could certainly not operate the business at the level that I do without all of my assistants and my team and the people that are behind me. It just wouldn't work,
No, not at all.
Yeah. It's so important for us to have those members, and they become members of your team. So your bookkeeper becomes a member of your team, even though they may be a contract, they're not working for you on a W-2, they're a contractor on a W-9, but they become a big part of your team. And do you have the conversations, Janice, does Yame Consulting have the conversations with the individual business owners on a regular basis? Are you meeting? Are you talking about if their expenses have increased, or if, their revenue has decreased? Or are you having those conversations with them so they're aware of what's happening in their books and decisions that they need to make? What is that relationship like?
So I liked when you said that we're a part of their team, because I have some, so I have we have tiers, just like anywhere else where levels of support, but we have a package that's called extended accounting support. And it's like we are an extension of their company. We are their accounting department. So I have clients where I've done their accounting and their bookkeeping for, 5 or more years. And I have one of their email, I have their company email address. I communicate with their employees. I communicate with their vendors and their customers. And I really am just a part of their organization. And yes, we do meet. Some of them I meet on a weekly basis, and we're going over um, where we are with their tax filing, and we keep track of sales tax and increase in expenses and trend analysis. And so we are meeting on a weekly basis to go over those numbers. And then there are people that I will do videos for, and I'll go over a trend analysis for their profit and loss and show them what I'm seeing so that they can watch it on their own time.
Mm-hmm. We all work hard for our money at some point. Some of us might have some passive income coming in, but to get to that part of passive income, you had to work to get to that point where the engine could just go, right, and drive itself. So if we're all working so hard for our money, why are we not paying attention to where that money's going, where it's being spent? If we're categorizing it correctly. And like I say, I follow tax law to the T. And there's a lot of opportunities out there in investing, especially real estate investing. And unfortunately, small business owners, yes, W-2s are taxed the highest, but then small business owners, we do get to write off a lot of those expenses, but our taxes are so high. Our taxes are so high, but that, to me, it outweighs the freedom that I have as an entrepreneur, and not having to be, I pay my own W-2 to myself versus getting it from somebody else. So I love the freedoms of that. But if we can stress one thing, it really is about make your accounting easy. That's what Yame is here for, right? Yame Consulting stands for your accounting made easy. And if you get a headache like I do, thinking about numbers like that, and you're like, oh, it just drives me crazy, I have always found that when I'm working with someone that's helping me understand it, that's helping me through the process, that's taking care of it, that's communicating with me, I feel a lot better. And I've hired people in the past that have not done such a great job. Then it takes months to undo it and fix it, and then amended taxes and all kinds of problems. So you've got to trust the person you choose. What would you recommend, Janice, as we're wrapping up? And then I'll have you talk about everywhere that you are, so that we're going to make it easy for them to find you. What would you say would be some of the questions that you would recommend anyone looking to hire a bookkeeper for their company that exists today? What are some questions you think they should ask of that bookkeeper?
Actually ask them, what are you going to be doing for me? Like that, I have found that one simple question.
Good.
I had a lady that asked her bookkeeper that she was paying a monthly fee and wasn't really sure what she was getting. Like I was asking her, like, are you getting financials each month? Are they going over them? And she was like, no, I'm not getting any of that. So I said, okay, well, ask her, what are you going to be getting? What am I paying for? And the lady quit. Like instead of giving her the scope of work, she just resigned.
She just ran away.
Yeah. And so that's like the
I'm
first
sorry,
question.
I should be laughing.
That's the first question you should ask is what am I paying? Is one, because that's always not transparent and not a given. And what am I getting? And if it's, hourly, you absolutely have to have a cap. Like what's the budget and what are you not going to exceed ever? So, because that's why we have fixed pricing is, I've seen that go way out of bounds when it comes to what somebody should pay for bookkeeping.
Yeah, you
So
don't
yeah,
like the billable hours model, right?
I
That's
don't.
yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
like that for some things. I have some team members that are billable hours, which I love because based on what I send them and how much work I need them to do, I'm billed for it. And then other ones, they're just kind of on a set amount. And I like that. But a good question. Those are great, Janice. What am I paying for? What do I get? And then what do you need? I think that's another
Mhm.
thing. Like,
What do
what
you
do
need
you
from me?
want?
Yes.
Yeah.
What
You
will you
know,
need from me?
Absolutely. What do you need? What do you want? So, do you want someone to go over it and help you understand a little bit more about a balance sheet and understand what your assets in your company look like, the value of your company? Are you planning on selling your company in 10 years? So, your goal is to build the value of your company. That's a whole different,
Yeah. What's
looking
your
at
criteria?
numbers, right?
Do you do the profit first method, which would
Mhm.
be one that I have found that it's slightly different and you might need
Way
someone.
different.
Yeah.
My husband does that in two of our businesses, and we have to work with usually a specific type of accountant that understands and does profit first on a regular basis. It's to try and teach someone that doesn't understand it and has never worked with it. It's just very difficult. So there's so many people out there now that work in that model that understand it. And so you have to get the right person for you.
Yeah.
I think that's really the easiest way to say it. So, Janice, you've got some things online. What is the best way for them to reach out to you, do you think?
On the website is all the services. So, like I said, I'm transparent. So, transparent pricing, what you get, what you pay, all of that. So, that is www.yameconsulting.com. So, yameconsulting.com. And then I am also on social media. So, at Your Accounting Made Easy on Instagram and Your Accounting Made Easy on Facebook.
Mhm.
And I do say follow because we give a lot of tax strategy and personal finance and all of those tips and tricks that will help you in your business. So even
Yeah.
if you don't have a bookkeeper, it does help you do things yourself. Um, and then if you want to get in touch with me personally, you can always email me at
Yeah.
Janiece@yameconsulting.com.
Great. So we have all those there available at your fingertips for you. And I always say, whatever platform, are you on Facebook? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Instagram? And just do a quick follow. And that way, Yame Consulting shows up in your feed. You can start filling a little bit more of those gaps of knowledge for the finances in your business. And I would say this too, if you're working with an accountant today and you're not happy with that accountant, it's time to branch out and start asking. I mean, we've switched CPAs. Like we've been with a CPA for many, many, many years, and we even had our kids working with the same one. And all of a sudden, in the last few years, the quality's gone down, and all of us have had issues. Some are getting audited. Like we're having like major problems, and so
Mm,
we're all like, we're out. Every single one of us. So unfortunately, you've got to keep that level of service because that's a lot of customers that person's losing. So, Janice, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a wonderful interview. You're just such a bright light. We love having you in the Leap community and being a value add. I love having you in the community, being close to me as well, here where I live. And I'm just going to remind our listeners, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that will ever be. That's it. So if this is the business that's your baby that you've put all this time, effort, and money into, make sure you've got someone helping you really understand the numbers. It's so worth the investment, and you will get so much more money back from that and the value and what you'll save and what you'll be able to write off that you didn't know. Trust me, trust me, trust me when I say it's best to go that route. It's never an expense. It's always the best investment. You always get it back tenfold. So Janice, thank you again for being here today, listeners. Thank you for being loyal to Take the Leap. We are excited that we're going to be recording show number 150 coming up here next. And go back. We've had some amazing episodes. Go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. Find them based on the title of what you're looking for in education, and always share those. Remember to share them with those that that you think could find value in that podcast as well. And thank you again. And until next time, don't forget, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, where you learned the tools to create a life by design. Remember, you are the only you there is, and you are the only you that will ever be. Be you and be strong, because you are brilliant, and the world needs you at your best. We cannot wait for you to join us again next time.